Penguin Random House Audio presents The Cycle, Confronting the Pain of Periods and PMDD. This is the author, Shalene Gupta. For my parents, and Ushir, beacons of light that shine brightly through every storm. Introduction. Shortly after I was diagnosed with premenstrual dysphoric disorder, PMDD, I was talking to a close friend from high school who has depression and anxiety. "Have you ever had a serious mental health issue?" she asked. Part of me felt insulted. She sounded as if she were talking about an exclusive club, and I wanted in. Then, part of me realized I was already in the club and had been a member for a long time. I just hadn't known. "I just found out I have PMDD," I said. "I don't know what that is," my friend said. "Think severe PMS," I said. I could tell my explanation wasn't landing, so I gave her a short description. Having PMDD means for a few days a month, right before my period, I morph from a quiet, conflict-averse introvert to an implacable storm of anxiety, depression, and rage. I scream. I throw things. Occasionally, I attempt suicide. Then, just as suddenly as the storm appears, it vanishes, only to come back next month. Before I got diagnosed in 2020, I'd never heard of PMDD. Instead, for years, I assumed I was a bad person with poor emotional control, and because of this, I worked hard to hide my episodes. Sometimes my diagnosis still felt made up, as if at any moment a doctor would call and say that PMDD wasn't real after all, that I was really just a disaster casting about for an excuse to behave badly. "I wouldn't say it's serious," I said. "Not compared to what you've gone through." "Honey," my friend said, "I've never been suicidal. I can't believe you deal with this every month." Then she demanded, "How have I never heard of this before? Why didn't I know?" These were the same questions I asked when I was diagnosed. When the medical community first proposed that PMDD should become an official diagnosis, the media conflated PMDD with PMS, a much more common syndrome that refers to the mild irritation and pain many people experience before their periods. This confusion contributed to the public branding anyone who menstruated as crazy. Because people don't talk about PMDD, we don't understand that a small minority of people can have severe psychiatric symptoms before their period. Because we don't understand this, people with PMDD are not getting the help they need, so they suffer in silence and shame, hiding their symptoms instead of talking about them, and so the silence grows deeper, trapping people with PMDD in a vicious cycle. I wanted to write this book to break the cycle of silence and to answer the question that too many still ask. What is PMDD, and why have I never heard of it before? But deciding to break my silence was easier than actually doing it. As I read about PMDD, I was forced to walk through the dusty chambers of my mind. I yanked stories and half-forgotten moments from chests and cabinets that I'd locked up tight. I dumped them on the floor and stared at the carnage. There was nothing here that I wanted anyone to see. There wasn't anything I wanted to revisit. I'd worked for so long to present a calm and collected facade to the world, even if I'd spent the night before attempting suicide or screaming at my boyfriend. Why would I want to tell anyone about the worst moments of my life now that I was finally getting treatment and doing better? Then I thought about the first person I'd ever spoken to who also had PMDD, a woman named Joy. When Joy smiled, it looked like the sun was rising in her face. She spoke slowly and softly, taking great care with her words, and she had a habit of ending answers with questions that reeled me in. PMDD riddled Joy's life with anxiety and panic attacks, the kind where you lock yourself in the bathroom and curl up sobbing all day. She saw doctor after doctor, but no one could tell her what was wrong. Her solution was to isolate herself from everyone she knew. She left her husband in 2003 because she didn't want him to deal with her illness. After that, her life was a series of doctor's visits, until she was able to get a diagnosis and treatment in 2019. We spoke for 6 hours and talked about everything. She told me about getting diagnosed as a Black woman. I told her about getting diagnosed as an Asian American woman. We talked about love and breakups and following your dreams. No matter what tangents we went off on, we circled back to PMDD, the disorder that affected our minds, our bodies, and the very course of our lives. Shortly after her diagnosis and treatment, Joy made a video about her journey with PMDD and shared it on social media. Her ex-husband saw the video and reached out. He had never remarried, and he still thought about her. They found they were still deeply in love, even though 16 years had passed. When we talked, they'd been reunited for a year. At 46, she was looking forward to starting the rest of her life. Joy wanted to tell her story to as many people as possible. Now that we'd been treated and were doing better, she thought we had a duty to help others with PMDD so they could live their best lives. In the spirit of doing this, I conducted over 100 interviews with researchers, doctors, and people with PMDD and their family members. The cycle isn't just about the menstrual cycle, but also about the socio-political cycles that surround PMDD, the never-ending loop of social stigma against menstruation that means menstrual disorders go untreated, adding more stigma to menstruation, the way knowledge about menstrual disorders goes on to feed sexist stereotypes, and the endless barriers to diagnosis and treatment. Chapter 1 provides an overview of what we know about premenstrual mood disorders, including PMDD. Chapter 2 examines how our society is mired in menstrual stigma, which creates a silence around menstruation and menstrual disorders. Chapters 3 and 4 chart the journey to get PMDD defined as a disorder. Chapters 5, 6, and 7 explore what life is like with PMDD, the challenges of treatment, and how people carry on with their careers and relationships. Finally, Chapter 8 is a call for all of us to create a better world for people with PMDD, whether we have PMDD, love someone who does, or simply want more support for everyone. Wherever possible, I've tried to use gender-inclusive language, but in some cases, for the sake of clarity, particularly when discussing sexism in history, I've chosen to use the words woman and women. At the request of some interviewees, I have used pseudonyms, as is the case with some of the people mentioned in my memories. For years, I imagined I was alone in my monthly PMDD spirals. I spent many nights wandering through my neighborhood because staying at home meant a screaming battle with my boyfriend. I'd wonder where to go next and what I should do when I got cold or tired. I had friends who would have taken me in, but I did not think it was fair to make them cope with my monthly messes. Still, as I walked past lit windows and families settling down to their bedtime routines, I felt terribly alone. I wondered what was wrong with me and my life. Month after month, I ended up in the same place, screaming at the person I loved best in the world, shuddering with rage and shame. As I interviewed people for this book, I realized that during all those years, I'd never walked alone. I'd always been part of a family. Perhaps we did not know each other by name, but in spirit, we lived the same lives. Month after month, we battled our minds to stay alive in the hope that another, better day would come. For a few of us, the next day did not come. For some of us, better came and stayed. But for many, better would come only to vanish once again with the turning of our cycles. This is our story. I wrote it for the people who ride the storm of their emotions every month, but do not know what is happening or why, for the people who love them regardless, and for Joy. Chapter 1. The PMDD Problem. It is 3 a.m. in the early spring of 2020, the beginning of the pandemic, and I am carving stars into my leg with a butcher's knife. Or at least, I'm trying to. Skin is surprisingly tough, knives are surprisingly painful, and a butcher's knife may not have been the right choice for the job at hand. The most I've been able to achieve are a few scratches, which fills me with a vague sense of embarrassment. If you're going to crack, you should at least do it properly. The day didn't start promisingly. I had woken up angry and depressed for no conceivable reason. My relationship was fantastic. I had somehow found a man willing to listen to me blather on about Machiavelli and manga, flattering sweatpants, and my latest writing project. My career was going reasonably well. My boss and I had just submitted the final manuscript of our book on trust in business for publication. My childhood had zero trauma, unless BC calculus and AP physics count. Even then, my teachers let me off with a B+ and nurturing advice. Don't become a scientist. Yet, all day, I'd vacillated between fighting.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?